get started. So hi, welcome to today's happy hour. This program today is hosted by Betsy Stecker. The whole virtual art series as a whole is produced by the Guild of Artists and Artisans, and it's a really great opportunity for artists to connect with art lovers in their community. You can check out an artist touring their studio, learn a little bit more about them and their story and their process, shop for artwork, and more. Each program's a little different from the last, so make sure to check them all out. We do them every Thursday, and we're continuing them through June, so you can watch them either live on Zoom here or on Facebook Live as well. And we also record all of these and post them on our YouTube channel if you want to watch later, and that's the Guild of Artists and Artisans YouTube channel. If this is your first time joining, my name is Elizabeth. I'm the Gallery and Program Manager with the Guild. We're really excited to have you guys here. It's going to be a really fun program today. As I mentioned, today's program's hosted by artist Betsy Stecker. Betsy's going to be coming to you live from her home in Royal Oak, Michigan, where she's going to share her story, explain her block printing process, demo her work, and you're also going to get some really fantastic music, a little musical performance to get our program started today by James and Bobby from the Reefermen. They're a Royal Oak, they're a band that travels around the Royal Oak area quite a bit. Betsy is a big fan of them. She follows them around. I know she'll tell a little bit more about that and her connection to them. But I got a little taste and they're awesome, so I think you guys are gonna enjoy it. Before we dive in too much, I do want to just kind of bring a couple quick little things to your attention. If you are new to Zoom, there's a couple different ways that you can comment and you can ask questions throughout the program today. So if you're on a laptop, on the right of your screen, well, actually below, if you go ahead and click, there's a comment section and there is a question section. You can leave questions and comments there. If you want everyone to be able to see your comments, to kind of engage with everyone, make sure when you're leaving a comment that there's a little drop down and you select your comment to go to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it just goes to me and Betsy. So if you'd like everyone to see it, go ahead and make sure you change that to all panelists and attendees. But we'd love to hear from you, so leave comments, ask questions. And yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring up Betsy now. She's gonna introduce our musical guest, and she's gonna kind of take it over from here. So let's bring her up. Oh, and I should mention a little taste of what you're going to get today. I actually recently got one of Betsy's prints. So this little guy's been living behind me for most of our programs. So hi, Betsy.
Hello.
Oh, I think you're a little frozen there. There we go.
All right, am I beginning?
You are, but your screen is frozen. Oh, here we go. You're good now. I see ya.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for taking over the program today. I know everyone's really excited.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll let you take over from here. And like I said, if people have questions or comments, I'll kind of chime in throughout the program.
Okay, very good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and I can go ahead and bring James and Bobby up too. Oh, unless you wanted to start with something else, Betsy, you're good to go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see myself on the frame there.
Oh, that's okay.
Here we go. Well, welcome to Royal Oak, everybody. I'm Betsy Stecker from Big Mitten Lino Cuts. I am recording from my home in Royal Oak. It's an old Victorian home, over 100 years old, and one of the oldest homes in the city. We love living here, and we're just a mile from downtown, which means we get to listen to lots of awesome music. For happy hour today, I have a Grizzly Pear hot hard cider from Blake's, which is absolutely delicious up in Armada in Michigan. So the Reefermen, we have been watching this band play since they were originally playing at the Pontiac Arts Beats and Eats, when that's a huge music festival that takes place here in Michigan. We have get to walk downtown and see them in bars. And by tradition, they close the Arts Beats and Eats on the Rock stage, often introduced by the mayor. They are a Royal Oak favorite band, and they're certainly my favorite band, and I'm so honored to have them open this set. In lieu of any tips or gratuities, James and Bobby are asking that you might consider donating to the Great Lakes Boxer Rescue, which is a charity that they care about. And I know that Elizabeth will put the link in the comment section. So please welcome the Reefermen duo, James Whalen and Bobby East.
Hey everybody. Did y'all hear us? Good afternoon, welcome. We are the Reefermen. I'm James, this is Bobby East, longtime Royal Oak Detroit players. We're playing some music for you. I got my mojo working, but just don't work on you. Got my mojo working, but just don't work on you. So bad now, don't know what to do. I'm going down to the head. Give me a mojo here. Going down to the head. Give me a mojo here. Gonna have a jubilee. Just as a final here. Got my mojo 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 here. It's all over. Look out. Happy hour to you. Welcome to the Art Guild show. We're going to take a look at some great art from Betsy. Once again, this is Bobby. I'm James Whalen with the Reefermen. We're not having a tip jar this afternoon, but if you feel like you'd like to make a donation, please make a donation in our name to the Great Lakes Boxer Rescue. There's Elizabeth put a link up there for you to donate. We're going to do one more song. This is a request that Betsy made. Her and her husband come see us all the time at Arts Beach and East in Royal Oak. And hopefully there's an Arts Beach and East this year. We're sad that there's not a Ann Arbor Art Fair, but we keep on keeping on. Stay safe and healthy, everybody. Thanks for watching. Facebook, everybody. Enjoy your day. We love you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm back up. Hi, everybody. So again, I'm Betsy Stecker. James and Bobby, thank you so much. That is my favorite song that you play when I come to see you. It's which Among the Rock that they play is often played in a soft acoustical version, which I love. So thank you again. So a little bit about myself. I'm a self-taught artist. I do not have an art degree. My degrees are in education and in teaching. I am an English teacher and I'm an editor. I currently work at the wonderful Japhet School, which is right here in Clawson near Royal Oak. And since I was a young girl, I've always gone to art fairs. I'm a daughter of very creative parents. My mother is a crafter of all things, and my father is an amazing model railroader. And I would go, my mother would always take me to art fairs, and I would bring maybe $5 or $20. And at many art fairs, that wouldn't buy a lot. But I learned that if I found a printmaker, or if I bought prints from a fine artist, I could afford art. So when my children were grown and I began to delve into my art, so that's what I did. And I'm going to start by showing one of my most popular prints. It's my logo on Instagram, which is a daffodil with some movement of the seeds blowing. So when I go to art fairs here, but still hoping perhaps to be in about 10, we'll see with what has happened around here. Young collectors love, they find my art, they're very happy that it's affordable. So they might find a print like this. So this is a block print. It was actually made by request of a friend of mine. This is a begonia, and then that's hand colored. And this is about $35. And then some people who have more or want a larger piece of art, they might purchase something like this. And this is 18 by 18. And I'm going to talk about my process and exactly what these are in a moment. And so this is a state of Michigan. I call this Falling for Michigan. And these are all individually carved leaves from the state of Michigan. So I am a block printer. Technically I'm a linoleum block printer, and people will sometimes ask me if I'm a wood block printer, and that is an amazing compliment. And the answer is no, I am not a wood block printer. Japanese wood block printing dates back to around 200 BC, and it's still being done today. There are many wood block artists. I am a linoleum artist. So I carve blocks of linoleum, and here is a block. It's mounted on particle board, and what you see, the design is the original linoleum, and then everything else has been carved away. It's tools. I can carve away the linoleum in literally any direction, and I don't have to fight against the grain. And that's one of the differences between wood block printing and lino printing. So my tools, I have many tools. My tools are ink. This is water-based ink, and this is oil-based ink. If I add watercolor, I need to use the oil-based ink. It takes about a week to dry, whereas the water-based ink takes just a few days to dry. These are very important tools. These are wood carving gouges, and I have 10 of these, and they all vary in size from extremely thin like that to this will remove a lot of material. So I have 10 of these gouges. These are called brayers, and these take the ink and they roll the ink onto, and I roll the ink onto the linoleum, and that's how the ink is applied to the block. Then I burnish it, and to burnish, which means to impress the design of the block onto paper. If it's a small block, I'll use this simple wooden spoon here for a very small block. And for larger blocks, I think you can see it. This is my press. This is a recent gift to me, a cherished tool. I've got one for a long time, and this is a gift to me for a big birthday I recently had from my children and my family, and it's very special to me, and that is what enables me to print by hand. It would take a very, very long time. So there are two different ways you can carve a block. Well, many different ways, but I'm going to point out two. So this is a block of is nature inspired, scenery inspired. I love spending time outdoors with my husband. So we kayak to this point. This is Crystal Point up in Presque Isle, Michigan, which is in the very tip of the mitten. And this design is carved into the block. So everything that you see is white is carved away, and then what's left is what prints as black. So this is carved into the block. And this piece, which Elizabeth has on her wall, which I was so flattered to see, is carved out of the block, which means that the block is about that big and everything is removed except for the black. So even the hand coloring that you can see there is removed. So prints, they print as black and white, and then I add color to them after. So those are two ways that you can print a block. I'm going to go through my Flora series just to show you. This is my most popular series that sells at art fairs. They are very affordable at $25 a print, and people love to see which bloom that they want. I did 16 different flowers. I did the dandelion, which I showed you, and then I have them in series of 4. So this is the bouquet series. So there's baby's breath, carnation, lily, which we'll print later if there's time, and a rose. And again, these are what the hardest part is deciding which one. The dandelion, this is the wild series, this is clover, this is the daisy and rose of Sharon, which we had many of at our former home. This is the spring series where we have an iris, a daffodil, a tulip, and blue grape hyacinth. And then lastly is the summer series, and this is the dahlia. This is my own, the artist's favorite is the coneflower, a poppy, and a sunflower. So once a block is produced, here is the lily block. Once a block is produced, I can do many different things with it, which is really why I love being a printmaker also, is really the art is in creation of the block. And then from there, I can apply it to so many different media. So with that sunflower block, here is the original as it was intended, and people buy these in pairs and in trios. I have all 16 of them hung up as one big set in my guest room. So here's that sunflower block, and these were at the Gutman Gallery in Ann Arbor, printed on an amber colored paper. And I have 6 of these in different colors, and people like to purchase them in sets, and they look lovely with a little bit of color. So lino, if you follow linoleum block printers on Instagram, black and white is very common. It's a standard color of our art is in black and white. So the process, I'm going to talk about the process. It begins with a sketch, of course. It begins with a sketch on paper. And then I take that sketch and I apply it to a piece of linoleum. But before I do that, I paint, I'm going to hold it far back on purpose. I paint it red so that when I carve it, the design will come through. So once the linoleum is painted red and it is dry, of course, I take a piece of carbon paper, like in the 70s. Those of you who were alive in the 70s had carbon paper, and you would put the sketch on top, and I literally press the design right onto the block. And then I can begin carving after I transfer my design. And an important note to mention about printmaking, relief printmaking, is that you have to design in the opposite, in the reverse. So for flowers and animals and insects, it doesn't matter. For the state of Michigan, over there, it matters a lot. So hopefully on your screens, it is showing in its proper way. It's not reversed. I can assure you it is in its proper directionality. But my block, the lino, is opposite that. So, and anytime I do lettering can be complicated. It has to be done in the reverse. So after, I'm going to get closer now, after the design is transferred to the block, I very carefully begin carving it out. And you can see, yep, the fine lines there. So that was done using this tool here, which is my smallest gouge. And I carved it away. Now, the reason why this block looks like this, so I'll get even closer, as I was carving the stem, my tool slipped and I cut the stem right in half, and I said some language, and it's all gone. So that's what happens sometimes. If you carve out material that you're not supposed to, you often cannot replace it. So you have to, that block is gone and you start from scratch. So mistakes do happen, so I wanted to show you that.
We have a question here, if I can interrupt you real quick.
Yes.
Cool. And I do want to say too, it's been okay for a little while. It was cutting out a little bit. So I'll let you know if the video cuts out again. I don't know if we can switch Wi-Fi or anything like that, but you've been okay for a little bit. So Ryan wants to know, his understanding is that wood blocks degrade over time, and so there's a limit on how many prints that can be made. Is that the case with the medium you use?
I do, yes. So I use actual artist grade linoleum, and artist grade linoleum does become extremely hard. So really it just emulates wood. And I consider myself an emerging artist, which means I've been doing art professionally for only a couple of years. So these are not 30-year-old blocks, but they are quite harder than when I bought them, but I can still print off them just fine. So I do print in limited editions, and I'm gonna explain what that means a little bit later in the program too, because when you go to an art fair, the word print can mean different things. So I'm gonna talk about that for sure. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm going to do a demonstration. I'm gonna move some things out of the way here and make sure it can be seen. Because we live in this Victorian home, the rooms are quite small, and I did not want to host you in my actual studio because it would be funny. It's a very small room and it's everywhere, so I had to move everything down here. So here we go. All right, so there is my desktop. Okay, so here's the block. We're just gonna do a quick print here. I'm gonna use oil-based ink. That's probably 10 times what I need, because it is applied in an extremely thin layer. And then I'm working the ink here. There we go. And then I apply it to the block. So we're printing a lily. There is waste when well, with any art form, there's waste because not everything comes out perfectly, but especially with printmaking, the first few prints are not saleable because they are so light. So here's my piece of paper, and I'm going to center it. I don't usually have the paper on the glass like that, but we're gonna do that like that. I'm gonna center it. The ink is pretty sticky, and now I'm going to burnish it with this spoon. So this print is going to be very, oh, it shifted. Oh no, it shifted. It shifted. Okay, we're gonna regroup real quick. That happens. And that's because I'm working quickly. Okay, that's all right. I'm gonna make it on this lovely lined paper. So with thinner paper, you can start to see the design come through. And printmakers often take quite a bit of pride in the kind of paper that they use. Can be very expensive. Sometimes it's Japanese rice paper. I use a heavy duty cotton paper, and my colored papers are called Tiziano. Okay, so that's gonna be good enough for a demonstration. I'm gonna peel it off. And then that is what the print looks like. I'm gonna put myself back up here. There we go. And that is a print. So my floor series, this is not a saleable print. You can see in the bottom corner there, it's still kind of rough, but really didn't print too bad, especially considering it was a second one on there. So that's that. And then in a little bit, I'm going to show you how I would print off of my press as well, but I'm going to try and cover some more material before I do that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about prints and reproductions. So when you go to an art fair and you see, for example, I have this painting. Like many artists, I don't have a lot of my art up in my own home. I did hang some for the benefit of this video, but this is a mid-century painting that we love and we have. And if this were, let's say you go to an art fair and this was not a very expensive painting, but if it were, say, $1,000 and you really love it, but there's no way you can afford that, you would ask the artist, do you have any prints? And the artist, and many of them do, they say, well, yes, of course, I'm happy to share prints with you. And they offer high quality digital reproductions of their fine art, oils and acrylics, maybe collages, and those are a different kind of print. As a printmaker, there are many kinds of printmaking, monoprints and etchings and lithographs, and I'm a block printer. So for a printmaker, prints are considered multiple originals. We print them in numbered editions, which means that we print only so many, and then when we hit that number, the block is retired and there will never be any more. And that's what helps give them value. I number my prints to 99. Some printmakers go up to 250, maybe even 500. Some printmakers go to 12 or 15, and those would be pretty valuable prints. So when you see a print, I don't know if it shows on the video, but it should be numbered. And so when you see a number, that's what that means. And I think a lot of you already know that, but I really wanted to just explain the difference between a print from a fine artist who's making reproductions of his or her own work so that it's affordable to a greater audience of collectors, and a printmaker whose prints are considered multiple original works of art. So something else I wanted to tell you then is that when you go through the bin of a printmaker, they should be slightly different. Some will be. So from a printmaker, I'm going to hold these two up. So these are of a block of daisies, obviously. And this set of flowers I hand painted fuchsia, and these are orange. But if you look carefully at the flower pot, they are a little bit different, and it's because this flower pot picked up more chatter, and what chatter is it's this part here, the part that's not supposed to print, but it adds character to block prints. So you'll see block prints with a lot of chatter. I have one right here. This is one of my earlier prints of a succulent, and that's loaded with chatter. So I have two audiences in my home. My husband loves the chatter. He thinks that it's indicative of the art form. He's an architect and offers me lots of advice on my art, and I'm grateful for that. And my daughter, she prefers very clean prints, so she prefers them without the chatter. So it's good to have that feedback and to know that either way really is okay. So,
quick question for you here, Betsy.
yes.
So what do you do with your blocks once you hit your 99 print?
Right. So they would be considered retired. I have already had requests to purchase the Flora series blocks when they are retired. They are I did these early in my art career. They're kind of special to me, but I might be ready to let them go. So you can actually sell the blocks, and you can find them. You might find them at if you were at a garage sale, for example, or if you're at an antique sale and you see something that looks like this, you might enjoy buying it, and knowing that while you certainly shouldn't, make prints off of them and sell them, you could certainly make prints yourself and just see, how it works and be like, well, cool, that's how that works. So when I was a little girl, I did this with potatoes, and some of you might have that same memory where you carve a potato and then you do printmaking with the potato. So it's the same kind of thing. So you can frame these like you would an oil frame, and just they're considered works of art. So they are ethically retired.
Cool, thanks.
Sure. So once you create a block, you can do, as I was saying earlier, you can do different things with it. And I wanted to show you. So an example of this daisy print. And then this is the exact same block, but printed completely differently. So I cut off the pot and I cut off the edge, let some sky in there, mounted it differently, And so it's a completely different work of art. Some printmakers might choose to continue the numbering on it. Some might choose to start from the beginning and start and say, okay, this is a new piece of art. It's going to have its new numbering system. And that really, it just differs from artist to artist. Okay, so again, when you are at an art fair and you find a print that you like, don't pick up the very first one that you see. Go through and see which one really speaks to you. So here is my, this is my best-selling block currently. I call it Dragon in Gold, and I always, in paper form, I print it on dark paper in gold oil ink. And this is a block that was, for me, it was complicated because it was both carved in and carved out. So the dragonfly wings were carved into the block, and then later on the stalks of the cattails, the tip of the body, and this water bug and the round shape were carved out of the block. So there's some thinking involved, and it was tricky, and it reproduced pretty well. So I sell quite a few of these, and this is the closest block I have to retirement right now. We're about midway through the edition, and I printed on navy and on black. And this navy one, you can see around the edge how it has a lighter imprint around the edge. Maybe you like that. Whereas, and in the wings, you can see the wings have a lighter imprint. Whereas this black one is a more true print, more clean. It goes all the way to the edge. So I consider them both valuable, and I sell them, and people do buy them. So that I wanted to show you that, so that when you're in art fair and you come to a print maker, you try to find out, these are original prints. Yes, they are. They're not digital reproductions. That's a good thing to ask. And then find the one that you really like. Okay, so I'm going to go through some more of my prints just to show you the variety of things that I do and how they are different, how I printed them differently. So this first set, this is a set that I happen to keep in my home. It's a set of birds. So this is another way to add color. So I showed you the hand coloring that I do. These are printed on colored paper. So I chose paper. It's Italian imported paper from Italy, Tiziano rather from Italy. And I chose colors that complement the birds. So we have a blue jay, a cardinal, a wood thrush, and the hummingbird. And these are 8x8s. These are my daughter's favorites. So this is not one block. These are 4 different blocks. So with these tropical leaves, I use them mostly to make textiles, and I'm going to show you the textiles also. I'm keeping an eye on the time. So these are 4 different blocks. It's complicated to print because once you put the block on, you're looking at it from the back and you can't always tell where the design is. Some printmakers mount their linoleum on clear acrylic, which is awesome. That would be super handy. It also would be fairly more expensive. And then here is the complementary one to that. So these are, my daughter has sold these to her friends. I'm grateful. And just a side note, this paper is very special because, as I mentioned, my husband is an architect and he was educated in the 80s, and a lot of modeling and hand drawing was done. So this is Mojave paper from the 80s, and it is in perfect condition, and he gave it to me, and it's my joy to make prints with those.
I have another question here for you. So specifically with the leaves on that last print that you were holding up, how long does it take you to create like a block of one of those leaves?
Yeah, that is a great question. So not including the sketch. So a sketch, you have to make the sketch and you decide you like it. So this took me probably about 2 hours to carve. And this one, maybe 15 minutes. So they do differ depending on the complexity of the block. And I'm very happy to pause and actually show you the blocks, because I think I might have skipped over that in my list. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm really grateful to whoever asked that question. So blocks do vary in their complexity. So this is one of my smallest blocks. This is a maple leaf helicopter, and I made a series of about 20 blocks of Michigan tree leaves and their seeds. This is the maple leaf that goes with it. So I do fun things with these, mostly on textiles. I have not made prints with these yet. This is a medium-sized block. It's still red because I've only made a few prints off of it. I just made this at Easter. We used to have a huge yard in northern Royal Oak, and we would, bunnies would naturally raise there. So I will show the print of this in a little bit. So that's a medium-sized block. And that medium-sized block took me about 4 hours. So this is a recent block, and you can see, I think you can see it yet. So this is the print of it over there, and the Gutman Gallery has these. This is recent for me. This is a 18 by 18. It was the biggest block at the time that I had carved. It's actually made up of 5 different blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all puzzled together. And this took me over a week to carve, and then to puzzle it together so that these seams were perfect and not, you can't have one level be too proud over the other. So to make it completely flush takes some work. And so that took about a week. And then my very most recent piece, and I had my son in mind for, doesn't even barely fit on the screen. So this is 18 by 24. And when a printmaker takes on a piece this large, there's a lot more risk, because you could see, looking at my trash lino over there where I just severed the stem right in half and the linoleum became trash. I don't want to make a mistake on this. So it took me a long time. I was very, very careful. I'm hugely fond of mid-century patterns. The lettering is in reverse, and then the resulting print is over here. And maybe I can, if there's time, I can pull it down and show it to you more closely. These items all are on my Etsy, and I'll talk about that later. But so this took almost 2 weeks from beginning to end to carve, and I was so relieved when I was finished with it that I didn't ruin it somewhere along the way. Okay, so I think that answers how long. That was a long answer, but it got me through those blocks, which is good. So as I just said, I am a big fan of mid-century patterns. We have some mid-century furniture in our old home here, which makes it pretty fun. And this is, I call this tulips and boomerangs. So it's mostly a black and white print, but I color the blooms, and I color them different colors, and different colors call to different people. So the hand coloring of the bloom is done by hand. This is a piece I did for my son just this Christmas. It's called The Best Time of Day. He is a fisherman. And this was a design that was carved out of the block, or carved into the block rather. This is one of my earlier pieces called Coffee with Gigi. And this mug is my cousin is a potter. Her name is Molly, Molly's Pottery. And she's a potter, and that was my favorite mug until I broke it because I dropped it on it broke. And then Coffee with Gigi, thinking of a French press, little mid-century fun. And I was very pleased. This was my first gallery showing at a gallery in Wyandotte. Very, very happy to have that. This is just another example of the Flora series, a dandelion printed on sage paper. And what I'm going to show you now is another example of how you can bring color into a print when you're a block printer. So this is called Michigan. My apologies to my Upper Peninsula friends. This is truly just celebrating the mitten part of the state. I do have other works that have the UP included. And this is a double block. So the green is a solid mitten block, and that is printed. And then I have to use a jig to make sure that I place the second block, which is the black mitten, directly on top of the color, so that it's called, when they line up like that, it's called registration. And I wanted to make sure that the registration was perfect. So I offer that in 3 different colors, pine, sand, and lake. This is I call it clover babies of the two bunnies. So here is the block. And then that is the resulting print. So you can see that it's a mirror image of it. And then this is the last one of my prints that I wanted to show. This is currently, even with my much larger, more complicated blocks, this is still my own favorite print of all that I've done. It is, my husband and I love to go kayaking in northern Michigan, and there is an area that is filled with blackbirds, and it's so peaceful. We're on the east side of the northern part of the state, not populated at all, and there's just nothing to listen to but the beating of the wings and the calls of the blackbirds. So this is a block, and then after it's printed in black and white, I hand color the red and the yellow, and this was also at the Gutman Gallery for a while. Okay, so that, I have more prints than that, of course, but I wanted to show you just some different ways that I use my blocks, and that leads me to what's next, which is textiles. So I discovered that, especially around the holidays, some people have more, I'll call it art confidence, when they purchase things that they can use, or they can wear, or they can decorate their home with, or that they can gift to another person without feeling like they are having to, that they're making them put something on their wall. And when people purchase, when they're looking at wall art and they're hesitant, something I tell them is that, you know, just like when we spend $30 on a shirt or maybe $100 on a coat, when you tire of it, you replace it. And it's okay to do the same thing with art. Because you purchase art, that doesn't mean you need to hold on to it for 20 years. You can give it to another person and let them enjoy it, and then get yourself something new to look at. People see art as an investment, but most of the art, you can buy plenty of art for less than $100. And that is, it's a fun way to bring new design into your home. So, but going back to my textiles, I do also use my blocks to make things. So this is a scarf. This is, this is cotton organza that I tea stain myself. And then I used, this is a pine cone block that I carved. So this is, I call this conifer. So it has white pine and red pine. You can see the 5 needled Michigan white pine, and then the red pine is 2. And then I make those in white as well. And these are, my white ones are large and square. This is a fun product that I began making, and these are actually for sale at Bread by Crispelli. This is a sac à pain, or a baguette bag. So those of you who are familiar with Crispelli, they have a loaf of bread called an epi with little lobes sticking out, and it breaks bags and is kind of infamous for being hard on the bag. So when I sold these, I brought them to the bakery and they were thrilled. And then I carved, so that's a wheat block. So I have it individually printed there, and then all together they form this wheat design. So that is one of my favorite products. These are zipper clutches. So I sew these myself. Everything that you've seen so far, I sew myself also. So I print on the linen. This is a birch design. This is a monstera design. A nice brass zipper. And then each one has a totally different lining. They're all unique. And when I made these sold pretty quickly. I was pleased to see that. So once the school year closes, because I'm a school employee, I plan on making more of these. And this is the maple leaf and the helicopter blocks together. I showed you those blocks. You're there. And that's the result. And I make pillows. Pillows are kind of a big hit. People love pillows. So this is a sycamore, and there's a sycamore seed, and again the maple and the maple helicopter. I stuff it with a nice hefty feather pillow, and I tea stain the pillow cover, and then I sell them like this. And also I sell just the pillow covers. So Sometimes you might have a tired old pillow at home and you don't want to invest in a brand new pillow. So you can buy, I sell just the pillow covers. So these are both tea stained. This is a light tea stain of the tropical leaves. This is a heavier tea stain of the fern. And then these are, these looks like my wild. So my my Flora series, the flowers on a pillow cover that is, these are 18 by 18. And then lastly, I make t-shirts, and I don't sell them at fine art fairs because I get it. They are not welcome there, and I'm totally good with that. But I do make them and I sell them because I don't make, I block print them and I sell them. I do not make the t-shirt. So here's a pocketed t-shirt with pine cone on it. I just show some of the designs. Apologies to my mother, I did not iron these before the show. Oak tree and acorns on the pocket. I have a friend who's a farmer, and I gave him this shirt for his birthday recently. So that's a wheat design, and these are so super soft. I use Bella Canvas t-shirts. Here's a smaller version. This is Monstera, a navy. It does sell the most of the dragonfly. I always print that on teal. And when I print on textiles, they are not numbered because they're not fine art or original art. They're hand block prints. So all of these are, I do print them by hand. I don't do screen printing, and they're not digital, but they're not fine art. You wear it out, you maybe mow the lawn with it and throw it in the washing machine, etc. So with this one, Monstera, you can see that there are 6 Monstera leaves, and each of those is literally, I take the block and I press it on one at a time. So they take time to print. This is a brand new textile that I made. Right now it's not made into anything, but I wanted to show it to you. This is a bicycle, I call it 1977, banana seat bike and flowers. So I believe that takes us to just about the end. Are there more questions before I demonstrate the press?
Yeah, one more question here. So good timing. So when you make a piece with multiple blocks, do you have to wait for the first block to dry before you go to the next one?
That is wise. Yes, I have done it both ways because I am admittedly impatient. Yes, you must wait until it dries, and also to do any hand coloring. So if the blocks don't touch each other, you can be careful, like with the tropical leaf that's now buried. So the tropical leaf print that I showed you, they weren't touching each other, so I can do it carefully. But for the Michigan, where it was the double block of 2 different colors, must wait until it dries. I learned that, as I say, I learned that the hard way. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate my press. I'm not actually going to ink the block. I'm going to talk a little bit louder. So I'm demonstrating my Blackbird block. So when using the press, this is a roller press. So there are 2 rollers. So the first thing that I do is, just as I showed you with the lily, I apply ink. I'm going to pretend that I'm doing that to the block. Put a piece of paper. Goes on. These are called press blankets, which protect the block from these high density rollers from crushing it, and it also protects these hard rubber rollers from being ruined by the block. So the blanket does that. And you may have used this. So it goes through the press. I like to send it through 2 times. Peel it back. And there's a video on my Instagram of me pulling the swallowtail. It's really kind of fun to watch a print come off of the block. So this is what a typical first print looks like. It's not saleable. It's pretty, I think, but it's too light. So it's not, that's called the proof. So printmakers work in proofs. And then this is a very typical second. Still not quite right. And then here is where I got into a good one. And I'll also show when you know you've been printing too much, and then I'm going to wrap. You can see in the fine line of the wing here, You can't see the detail because the ink flooded the block. So the block is done. It's saying, nope, do not print me anymore. And you have to take it off and you have to clean it, because then once you get ink into the valleys of the block, you can't keep printing. You have to clean the block. So I'll just end by saying where you can find my work. First of all, my gratitude to the Guild and to the Gutman Gallery. I'm very flattered to have my art there in that gallery, to be associated with the Guild, and would have been at the Ann Arbor Art Fair and will be there next year. I also have an Etsy. Most of my work is on Etsy. You can find me under Big Mitten Lino Cuts, and I know that Elizabeth will put those links up. And you can see almost all of my work on my website, which is bigmittenlinocuts.com. And I'm finished.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Betsy. I'm going to pull my video up here. Cool. All right. Well, thank you. This was really fun. Big thanks to you for putting on a great program. And then thanks to James and Bobby, two of the Reefermen. They were awesome. So good suggestion there. Hopefully it won't be too much longer before we can go see them sometime live. So I just want to kind of wrap up with a couple things here. As Betsy mentioned, I linked to all of her website, Instagram, Etsy shop. So you can go check out all of the work that she showed you there. I also wanted to let everyone know, if you weren't here on Tuesday, we announced that we are moving forward with these virtual art series programs throughout the month of June. So we're really excited about that. We have a great lineup. They'll be every Thursday at 4 p.m. So make sure you follow along on our virtual art series Facebook event page, which I also linked to in the comments. We'll be posting updates and Zoom links and all of that good stuff there, as well as on our regular Guild of Artists and Artisans page. And then next week is an exciting week, because we are announcing the winners of our Bob Ross inspired art competition. So if you go over to the Guild's Facebook page, you can also watch the finalist videos there and vote for your favorite, and then make sure you tune in next week on Thursday at 4 to see who won. So thank you guys again so much. Thank you, Betsy, and I hope you guys all have a really great rest of your day.